future. But today we're going to talk about Gutenberg tips and tricks. I am Christine Ward. I'm a digital content strategist with Cornershop. So I spend a lot of my time building pages to make them look nice, and we love WordPress here at Cornershop, so I really like using Gutenberg. And I will let Deontay introduce himself.
Everybody, I am Deontay Wilkinson. I am the CTO over here at Cornershop. I've been with Cornershop now for, I think it is actually my 8th or maybe going on the 9th year now. So previous developer, but have been with Cornershop and have been using Gutenberg ever since its inception, back when it was just a single plugin, before it was called the block editor, and have used it in various different stages. So we're just happy to be able to present to you things that you can use in Gutenberg, maybe things that you didn't know. And yeah, looking forward to teaching you this all. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask them. We will be answering questions both in the chat and at the end of the session with the QA session.
All right. So what is Gutenberg? It's also called the WordPress block editor. Gutenberg is a user-friendly content editor that lets you design the pages and posts on your WordPress website with blocks that indicate different types of content. So for example, you might use a heading block followed by a paragraph block followed by an image block to kind of piece together your page. It was released back in 2018 to replace the WordPress Classic editor and really simplify the process of building out your web pages. So just some quick benefits. It's really beginner friendly. It also allows you to see your content in a format that's closer to how it will look on the front end of your website for visitors. There's no need to mess around with shortcodes like you had to with the previous WordPress Classic editor. It also gives you a lot more out-of-the-box options for page design and layouts. Plus, it eliminates the need, in many cases, for a separate page builder plugin. But to answer that second question up there, why does it matter? WordPress opens up page creation to a whole new audience of creators with Gutenberg. You really don't have to be a developer or memorize a ton of different complicated codes just to make a web page look really awesome. With Gutenberg, you can choose from a huge range of different types of content blocks to build out your ideal page without any coding. And it's easier for the average person to use and more accessible than the previous Classic editor in WordPress. But that does not mean that there aren't a lot of different tips and tricks that you can use to really streamline your page creation process and make sure that you're taking full advantage of all that the editor has to offer. So we like to do little joke breaks in the middle of our webinars just to help lighten things up a little bit. So how does a web designer take their coffee? And you can add your guesses to the chat. Or I can just tell you the answer. So it is the RGB code for the color black there. So we can talk about the endless possibilities in Gutenberg. There's really so much that you can do to a page with just the out-of-the-box blocks that come built into Gutenberg. But there's really a whole new world that opens up when you bring in custom blocks as well. But I just wanted to cover of my favorites in the out-of-the-box category. So there's really the tried and true combination of that image block with a heading and text and button. The column block with an image or an icon and a text kind of in each column. Cover blocks, I love cover blocks. They're really versatile. You can have an image or video or colored background, and then add text and other content on top of that. So you can use them as they were originally intended, as that kind of header or the top of your page, or you can also use them throughout your content to give things like calls to action a more designed out look and help those really stand out with the rest of your content. The spacer block is awesome for adding white space to a page. When that combination of images, videos, and other blocks starts to feel really cramped. I'm also a fan of the quote block to bring attention to not just quotes and testimonials and things like that, but you can expand that to call out other texts that you want to draw special attention to on the page, like important statistics on an impact page. Right, and then synced patterns were formerly called reusable blocks. And they're a really neat way to quickly add content to the page, especially when you're adding the same or similar content to multiple pages on your site. So things like a call to action, social media links. A lot of people do it with sponsor or partner logos, so that you can insert that same content on multiple pages and posts without the need to recreate it each time. And then if you want to edit them, the changes can be site-wide to every page using that synced pattern, or you can select to just edit that one block on that one page that you're using. And it really saves a lot of time. So to create that, you would, in the block settings, select create pattern and then give it a name and make sure that synced option is turned on. And click create, and then you'll be able to add it from the available patterns in the block inserter with that name that you gave it.
Yeah. So I'll quickly talk to you about patterns. So patterns are definitely one of the most useful features of the block editor. So if you have been a client of Cornershop and we have built your website, I'm sure you have used the block editor before and have seen custom patterns that we have created for you. But patterns are just a collection of pre-built out blocks that you can use to quickly create new pages on a website or quickly enhance existing pages. So they allow you to add new sections to the page. So you can easily insert a pattern using the same block inserter that you use to add blocks to a web page. So these patterns are usually broken into categories. So it may say things like button or header or footer or columns or anything like that, or you can very well have custom categories as well. So maybe you have a pattern that you quickly use on various parts of your website, and it may have 3 buttons listed next to each other. So maybe you want to create a custom pattern that you could quickly use on other pages of a website. So I know that a lot of our clients will wind up using the feature to duplicate a page in order to edit a page or have a similar looking page, but using patterns is also another way of quickly building out a page as well. If you don't feel like duplicating a page, you can want to add something from another page. You want to say, I just want to add this little section, or maybe I want to add this heading or some sort of group on a page that matches this other page. You can quickly add a pattern to a page, but you can also build out your own patterns. So if you click on one of the blocks in the list view on the sidebar, you usually have some sort of feature where you can say add a pattern, and you can quickly name that pattern to whatever it is that you want to name. And that pattern will be available in the block inserter list view on the page. Another well-known, unknown feature of the block editor is the pattern directory. It's a little lesser known feature. So the pattern directory is just a curated collection of patterns that are created by users from all over the world in the WordPress.org organization as well. So you can sort of think of it as an online store of patterns. So if a pattern isn't available on your website already, you can go to the pattern directory and you can access that by going to wordpress.org/patterns. Going to the pattern directory, you can find a pattern that matches the look that you're going for. So you can filter it by both the category and the description of the pattern. And you'll pull up a list of patterns that users have created. And the great thing about the pattern directory is that it allows you to quickly copy a pattern from the pattern directory and place it directly on your website. So when I go to a pattern here, you'll see a little copy button. And that copy button will actually copy the contents of the pattern from the pattern directory and put it into your keyboard. I just navigate to a new page on my website or some existing page on your website, and you could just quickly paste that pattern in, and it will be recreated for you on your website. So the style will look very similar, but the styles will kind of inherit the styles of your existing theme. So maybe an H1 on your website or an H2 on your website has a slightly different color or a slightly different font to it. By pasting this pattern in from the pattern directory, it will inherit the styles of your particular website. So the H1 will look exactly how it's going to look on your existing website. And when you save the pattern, if the pattern includes things like images, you'll be given the ability to upload those images right when you save the web page. So you can quickly test out different patterns on a web page before you before you decide to save it and see what works best for you. So you have things like buttons or grids or columns or headings or particular colors of combinations of things. It allows you to quickly lay out a page using the pattern directory similar to the patterns that are already included on your website. So the list view is one of the great ways that you can use to navigate across blocks on a page. So the list view allows you to see things like the blocks that are already on the page. If you click the little outline tab of the block inserter, you can also see how the page is laid out in terms of things like the H1, H2, H3. So it can also give you a reading score. It tells you how long users would take to read the page. But the list view is also a very powerful feature on your website. So you can view all the blocks that are nested from within each other. You can also navigate to the ancestor blocks as well. But one of the useful features as well is the little hamburger, like it's a little option menu for each of the blocks that are listed within this list view. So you can do things like copy a block, duplicate a block. You can copy the styles from one block and apply it to a different block. Maybe you want to wrap a block inside of a group block. So maybe you want to have a block that is like the H1 of this thing or the list view of this thing. Wrap all of those into a group block and you can drag that around as you see fit. But you can also do things like create a pattern from this list of blocks already. So you right click, you'll have the option to say create a pattern from the selected block that I already have, and that pattern will be inserted into the patterns list that is in the block, like that is in the list view already. So if you'd rather not use the list view to navigate across the different blocks on your page, you also have this little breadcrumbs that appear at the bottom of the page. So let's say you've selected a block, you can select all of the different ancestor blocks of that block. So maybe this block is nested within 2 blocks. So I can quickly navigate to the parent block by using the breadcrumb feature rather than using the list view. Or rather than having to click the block in the block editor, I can navigate across this page using the list view. And one of the useful features as well that we may be able to get into later if we have time is the ability to have the list view open right when the web page opens up. So let's say you decide to add a new page to your website and you want to have the list view show open at like have it be open automatically when you create this new page. That is an option that you can set for just yourself. So when you create a new page, all of a sudden the list view is open directly up and the block inserter is right there as well, so that you don't have to toggle the block inserter or toggle the list view. It's just already open when you view the page. So I find this to be one of the features that I wind up using the most as I'm building out pages within Gutenberg / the block editor. One of the other useful features is the ability to name blocks. So you can be able to name a block by leveraging the HTML anchor field of blocks to assign a name to a block. So I know one of the things that I wind up doing when I'm building out pages is I sometimes need to be able to see all of, like, to be quickly point out which block is named what. So maybe I want to add some sort of descriptive name to a block, and I decide, hey, this is the block. I want to name this block something like, I don't know, architect, or this block name it to something like about me. I can use the anchor feature within the block to quickly add a little name to the list view, and that way I can quickly see what block is listed in this page. So I could say, now here's the about me section of a page. Here's the about us section of a page, or here's the staff block of a page. I can use the HTML anchor feature to do that. This is definitely useful if you happen to have a page that has a lot of blocks on it. Sometimes it can get a little confusing to be able to pinpoint exactly which block contains what type of content. Using the list view in this HTML anchor feature is a very useful feature to be able to name a block. But with that, I'll talk about using the actual renaming feature of blocks. So one of the enhancements that came with the last version of WordPress that was released is the ability to rename blocks. So instead of using the anchor field, you can actually rename the block altogether. Unfortunately, rename of blocks is currently only supported for the group block, but it is one of the things that they are working on in later versions of the Gutenberg editor. So I can rename a block by right-clicking on that block in the list view. I can view in the options for that block, navigating to the section that says rename block, and it will allow me to rename this block to whatever it is that I want to rename it to. So if I want to tell someone to edit a certain page, or if I want to tell one of my employees, say, can you change this section of a page, and this page happens to have several different blocks on it, I can say, okay, go to the one that's named about us, or the one that's named staff, and they automatically can see that within the list view to say, okay, I see the list, and now I see the one that says about us or staff, and I can quickly view and navigate to that section using the list view of a page. Another useful feature is the focus mode. So if you've ever written out a lot of content on a page, and maybe you are just going to be in a very content focus mode, one of the great features is the spotlight feature. So what this allows you to do is to just highlight the current block that you're on within the Gutenberg editor. So rather than seeing all of the blocks and all of the text related to it, if I select the block within the block editor, it will just highlight that block, and all of the rest will be grayed out. So it sort of allows me to focus on the content that I'm writing in, instead of being distracted by all of the other blocks on the page. It allows you to focus on just that particular content that you're editing. Another useful feature is the full screen mode, or what they call distraction free mode. It is basically just gets rid of all the entire sidebar of the block editor. And now I just see the content only. I don't see the settings of a block. I don't see the settings of the particular page that I'm on. I could just see a full screen of my content, and I could just start editing as much text as I want and inserting blocks left and right by using things like keyboard shortcuts, or by using the toolbar that's within the block editor. So one of the other great things about the block editor is block styles. So if your block does, so if your theme or block supports it, block styles are just one of the ways of quickly changing the entire look of a block. So block styles are pre-configured designs that allow you to change the look and feel of a block. Block styles usually have to be applied within the theme, and it says, like, I want to give the option to quickly change the look of this block using the block styles feature. So I name my block style, and I can quickly navigate in between all of the different block styles for that particular block. So in this instance, I wanted to have a my image block be able to look like a flower, or maybe I want to have my image block sort of have the pattern and look of a wave. I can quickly do that within the block styles feature, within the block styles area. So one of the ways in which this can be applied is usually things like buttons. So maybe I have a button on my website. In some cases, that button is blue. Other cases, that button is red. Other cases, that button is a yellow. So maybe I want to quickly change the look of this button by just clicking the block styles feature. So if the theme supports it and a block style has been defined for that particular block, I can quickly go to the block settings, quickly change the style, and now my button is changed to yellow, blue, or red, or whatever sort of block styles that are allowed for that block. And I can change the entire look and feel of that block with just a click of a button, rather than needing to mess around with all of the various block settings that are available for that particular block. So block styles are available on a per block basis. So unfortunately, I can't say like have the flower like block style that is applied to the image all of a sudden be applied to the group block or be applied to a button block. So it needs to, like, the block that I'm working with needs to be able to support a block style, but we've done this for various clients to be able to add like block styles, and there may be some sort of ability to define your own block styles. But if you've never used it before, I would say it's a very useful thing to play around with. If you've never noticed this section, just play around with styles and see which styles are available on your website for what blocks. Keyboard shortcuts. So I wound up using keyboard shortcuts all the time, just in my personal life and when I wound up navigating from program to program. But the Gutenberg editor also comes with a list of keyboard shortcuts that you can use within a page. So some of the common ones are things like being able to save the page. So being able to use like Command S to publish a page, or being able to update a page, or undo your page, like, or do the changes that you made using Command Z, or using things like Shift Command Z to redo the undo that you just did. So I have here listed the various Mac keyboard shortcuts. So there are like all of these keyboard shortcuts work as well within Windows. It's just different keys that are supported, but all of these keyboards, like keyboard shortcuts, exist for Windows as well. So one of the things that I'm constantly doing when I am updating a page is doing things like duplicating a block. So you can quickly do that on a Mac by pressing Shift Command D, and it will duplicate the selected block and then just insert the new block directly below the block that directly below the block that I just duplicated. So maybe I want to insert a block before the current block. You press Option Command T to do that. Insert a block after the current block, I press Option Command Y to do that. Option Control Z if I want to delete a block. So maybe I'm editing a page, I'm like, I made a mistake, I no longer need this sort of block. I just press Option Control Z and I can delete a block. So if you want to see all of the available keyboard shortcuts, you can navigate to the settings or in the block editor. So little 3-button icon that appears in the top toolbar. You click on that and you navigate all the way down to keyboard shortcuts. Clicking that is going to just open up a modal window that's going to display to you all of the keyboard shortcuts that are available for the block editor. So you'll be able to see what keyboard shortcuts affect the content that I'm editing, what keyboard shortcuts affect the block editor page itself, what keyboard shortcuts affect the particular block that I'm working on. They have a whole list of keyboard shortcuts here that could definitely prove to be useful to you as you're editing content on a page. So if you have a keyboard that supports it, I also like to be able to—
Deontay.
Yeah.
The last thing I heard was explaining where to find those shortcuts.
Oh, sorry, did I get cut off? Okay. Yes. So you could find the shortcuts by navigating to the settings menu in the top right-hand corner of the block editor on the page. And you just click on that, scroll all the way down to the keyboard shortcut section, and it will pull up a modal window of all of the keyboard shortcuts that are available on a page. So you'll navigate across that. If you scroll down there, you'll see all of the keyboard shortcuts for that particular page that you're working on, the block editor itself, the blocks that you currently have selected. So this is a running list that is constantly being updated with each release of WordPress. So you may see new keyboard shortcuts show up here as new versions of WordPress are released. If you have a keyboard that supports it, you can also remap these keyboard shortcuts to a particular button on your keyboard. So I have remapped things like duplicating a block to the F3 button on my keyboard. So when I go to the block editor, rather than having to remember I Shift Command D, all I have to do is press the F3 button on my keyboard and it will duplicate the current selected block. I have F4 mapped to insert the block before the current block, F5 mapped to insert a block after the current block, and F6 is mapped to delete a block. So if your keyboard supports this, I would really advise that you set up these sort of keyboard remapping shortcuts on your own computer so that you can map these keyboard shortcuts to whatever extra buttons that you have on your keyboard. So I definitely find this to be useful as I'm adding content to a page, editing a page, or making a lot of changes on a page, especially a content-heavy page. Being able to quickly access these things with the press of a button is a lot easier than having to remember which keyboard combination that I need to press in order to do common things. Sorry. This is, I actually updated this section. So it says enhancing the block editor. So let me see if I can actually share the new version of the presentation myself, or Christine, if you're able to exit out. Actually, I should be able to do it myself. I want to, yes, present this. And there we go. And it should present. There we go. All right. Just need to do one other thing. Yes, there we go. Yes. So enhancing the block editor. So one of the great things about the block editor is the ability to unlock its power with additional plugins. So I wound up installing a lot of plugins on a website to enhance blocks and just WordPress overall. And that's one of the main powers of WordPress itself. So there are additional plugins available in the WordPress plugin directory that allow you to enhance the user experience and the UI of the block editor itself. So you can do things like add additional block styles to a page, add this plugin block enhancements, and there's various other plugins like this. So block enhancements is one that I find useful because it allows you to do things like add an icon to a button. So the button block in the core Gutenberg editor right now does not have the ability to add an icon, but just by quickly installing a plugin, I have the ability to add an icon to a button. And I have the ability to do things like transformations, to be able to add animations to a block using additional plugins as well. One of the other plugins that I find useful is the ability to manage blocks. So I know when I'm editing a web page, or a block editor page, one of the useful features is being able to I see all of the blocks that are available on the website, and maybe there's a whole bunch of blocks listed there that I have no intention on ever using. Like there's a LinkedIn block or a Twitter block or Facebook block or some sort of Reddit block that I know I'm never going to use on this website at all. I have the ability to disable the block altogether so that it doesn't crowd the block editor, or doesn't crowd the list view, doesn't crowd the list of available blocks on the that are available on my website. Or maybe I want to limit the types of blocks that are available on my website altogether to prevent one of my staff members from being able to add a block that doesn't look right, or I know doesn't work with my particular brand. You can disable blocks as you see fit. You can disable blocks on a per page basis. So these are also some of the useful things that you can do. Another useful one that I find is the ability to add outlines around blocks. I know one of the things that I have sometimes have trouble with is looking at the block editor and being able to distinguish where one block ends and another block begins if I want to edit the content of a block. So by adding little outlines around blocks, I can quickly see, all right, the paragraph block ends here. So if I click outside of here, I'm going to be able to access its parent block. So maybe the paragraph block is in a group block, or maybe this button block is right next to a heading block. I can see where one block ends and another block begins by just adding a by just adding a border around blocks. So that's where the real power of the block editor comes in. It's just by installing other plugins on a web, like by installing other plugins on my website.
All right, I can talk quickly about page templates. So a template basically controls the layout of your pages. It's different from a theme, which controls, the whole design of your site. And they're set on individual pages or posts, so that you can select that template that you'd like to use from the page settings on each individual page. So most websites will have a default page template, which is just your standard internal page on your website. But there is also the option to create more custom templates to help ensure that your pages retain the same look and feel, or even just to help speed up that page creation process. So for example, you might have a template for your homepage, a template for campaign landing pages, for programmer service pages, a template for event pages. It's just a really nice way to give your site a consistent look, and set your new pages up for design success. Right, so we've got another joke break here. Why did the web designer storm out of the restaurant? Any guesses? So they were offended by the table layout. All right, so now we're going to talk about page layout. So that is essentially just organizing blocks on a page. So page layout in Gutenberg can really let you get your creative juices flowing to combine all of these various blocks, plus any custom blocks that your site might have, into a cohesive and really nice looking page. And so I wanted to share a couple best practices for that. So if you have them, page templates can really help speed up the process and give your site a cohesive feel while kind of swapping out elements like photos, videos, and text to make each page unique. And really the same goes with patterns, to use those to easily set up a nice looking design that you can use on multiple pages of your site. You also want to ensure that each page is easy for online readers to scan. So that's things like headings and manageable 2 to 3 sentence paragraph blocks broken up with different types of blocks to add interest to the page, like image and video blocks. You want to try to avoid pages that only use text and heading blocks. So the goal is to really use a variety of different types of blocks on every single page. You'll also want to follow the best practices for accessibility. So that means avoiding things like italics in your text content, ensuring that your font is legible and large enough to read, adding alt text to images, including text alternatives for non-text elements, things like video or audio. Just making sure that you're following all of those best practices so that everyone can use your website. You'll also want to make use of that spacer block to create white space on the page and separate various elements kind of as needed. It's also helpful if your organization has a style guide to keep that updated with website layout information as well, just to make sure that the site stays cohesive as multiple people across your organization are making changes to it. All right, so I am going to break from the presentation for a minute if I can get access to the screen presenter. Here we go. So I just wanted to show a couple of different examples just to give you a little inspiration. So this is the ceramics page on the Powerhouse Arts website. And it's just a really solid interior page. There's really nice visuals to break up the text. And there are a few cover block calls to action. And just the way they've listed things out, it's a really nice way to list out all of their offerings, but also fit in with the overall design of their site. So I'm going to scroll through it here. Also wanted to show you the Our Movement page on the LA Worker Center Network website. It's a really interesting layout that they carry throughout their whole site, using more of that two-column approach on each page. They've got a lot of images peppered throughout the whole site, and they use the cover block with that blue background to share kind of extra information on the page. And they also have a nice use of the accordion block here, so that visitors can select their area without having to get hit with that long and overwhelming list right off the bat. And then finally, we have the Get Involved page on the Access Now website. This page does a really nice job. It does include a few custom blocks, but a similar layout is available kind of right out of the box in Gutenberg. Get Involved pages are really tough because there's, lots of different competing calls to action that you want to show on the page. But this page does a nice job of giving each one space and color in the page layout with columns and cover blocks and this nice grid here. All right. So now that we've had a few examples, I wanted to just quickly build out a page in Gutenberg so that you can get a feel for what that process might look like. And I talked with one of our support specialists before the call, and he let me know that a lot of people are really struggling with their team pages or staff pages. So I thought that might be a nice opportunity for us here. So a lot of people on this page will just show a kind of grid of different staff members with, their name and a headshot and maybe a quick button for that links to a bio page. So that is the approach that I'll take here. So we might start out with an image. So we've got not a ton of great images to choose from on our test website that we're using. Well, how about an office like building thing? And then we might add a header that is team members. And then we'll dive into those columns. So we'll want to use the columns block, and 3 tends to be a nice number there. So within each of these blocks, we want that image of the staff member's headshot. There's a nice little panda here. And then their name. So I'll want to use the H3 heading to follow that heading hierarchy. So name 1. And then we'll have a little button to get to know name. And you'll want to link that button to the internal page that lists out the bio. So you'll kind of repeat that for each of these columns. And then when you're ready to add a new column, you would, rather than kind of building out each column down, you'll want to start a new block of columns so that that line does not get messed up as if people have long names and they kind of break into multiple lines. And maybe we previewed it and the image looks a little too close to the heading here. So we might, add a spacer in here. And that spacer looks a little tall. So in the settings here for the spacer, you can kind of play around with how much white space you want to use. We just want a little bit. 20 usually does the trick. And then maybe at the very end, or maybe we decide to add it up front, we can add a cover block to encourage people to reach out through your contact page. So with the cover block, the first option you'll see is to add that background image to it. So we're gonna have a nice little panda here. And for the heading, might reach out to our team. And then might add quick call to action text. And usually looks better in the cover block when that is centered. And then we can add a button in here. And we'll center that button as well with this justify center option. You can say reach out. And make sure that button is then linked to your contact page. The other nice thing about blocks is the drag and drop feature. So you might say, oh, that looks weird with the image right on top. So we could just, drag it down. Oops. Oh. Make sure that your whole block is selected before you do any dragging. But you could just drag the whole block down like that. All right, let me get back to the presentation here. And just adjust. Settings. There we go. Right.
So some of the features that are coming to Gutenberg. So as I said, there's a lot of features that are being released all the time, especially in the WordPress plugin, like in the WordPress updates itself. But there's also a companion plugin that is also just called Gutenberg, where a lot of the initial development lies are taking place. So some of the features that are already in that official plugin that winds up getting rolled into future versions of WordPress is the ability to name all blocks. As I mentioned, naming all blocks is not a feature that is currently supported. You can only name the group block and I think maybe the list block as well. But the ability to name all blocks is going to be coming to future versions of WordPress. I think it's going to be released in the next one. So you can name any block that you want to whatever name that you want and be able to quickly navigate across pages. Christina's already mentioned sync block slash reusable patterns as they're now called. Sync patterns as they're now called. So one of the things that's going to be coming is what WordPress is calling partially synced blocks slash partially synced patterns. So one of the great things about about using the patterns feature is that when you add a pattern to a page, you can change the content of that pattern and change the content and the entire look of that pattern and not have it affect all of the other pages on a website that wind up using that pattern. But sometimes maybe you want to change the look of all of the patterns on a website, or maybe you want to say, I use this pattern on this page, but now I actually want to change it. And I want to have that change be applied to all of the other pages that I use this pattern on. So when I use so one of the features that's coming is this partially sync block. So what that will allow you to do is to be able to change the look of all of the patterns on a website, but keep the content that's already there on those individual pages. So if I updated the content of the pattern on the About Us page, but I also use this pattern on the home page, and I updated the content on these particular two pages to be different, but maybe I want to change the look of both of these patterns, I can now do that with partially sync patterns, and it will change the look while keeping the custom content that I added on a page. One of the features that I am most excited about is the command palette. So the command palette, if you've ever used the search bar or the help center on a particular program or software on your computer, the command palette is sort of like this. So what it will be is a search bar that is supported throughout the entire block editor, and it will allow you to enter commands into it. So if I'm working on the block editor page, I previously showed you all of the keyboard shortcuts that were available, but maybe I don't want to remember a keyboard shortcut. With the command palette, I could just pull up the command palette. It will open up a little modal search bar. I start typing in a description of the command that I want on a page. So maybe I want to say, all right, duplicate this block. And rather than having to remember Control Shift D in order to do that, I just say duplicate this block, and it's going to duplicate the block for me. Or if I want to say delete this block, I just enter it into the search bar command palette that shows up, and it will do that for me without me having to remember the keyboard shortcut for this days. Or maybe I want to navigate to different pages of my website quickly, or different pages of the admin interface in WordPress. I can pull up the command palette, and let's say I'm working on the About Us page, and click into that, type in, I want to edit the staff page, and it will reload that page. And now I'm editing the staff page without having to do a bunch of clicks within the WordPress editor itself. It's just one place to be able to quickly navigate your entire WordPress admin experience without having to use the mouse so much, or without having to use or without having to remember a bunch of different keyboard shortcuts. I can use the command palette to just be able to do all of these things. So I'm definitely looking forward to that as a developer, because it will allow me to add in custom commands that I want to be able to do. So maybe there is no command that's supported for the thing that I want to do. I can create a custom command and it will do it for me. So that is one of the great features that's coming, but they're also working on a whole bunch of other things in Gutenberg as well that's going to be coming to future versions of WordPress. I know one of the things they're working on is going to be focused way more on the editing, like the text editing experience in WordPress. So they plan on changing what it is that they look like, what it is that they look like. One of the things that they're working on is changing the look of the entire admin interface to be a little bit more enhanced, so that you can quickly reload certain parts of the admin without having it take so long. So that's other features that are coming, but definitely looking forward to this. And as we release new versions of WordPress to our website, if you're a support and maintenance clients, you'll be able to see all of these additional things. And with that, we will move on to Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or add it to the chat box and we will answer them. All right. So far, uh, yes. So we'll get to Patrick's question. I see, does hiding blocks on a page slow down the load time? So I'm assuming this relates to hiding blocks on, like, maybe hiding block on mobile or hiding block on tablet. So Patrick, if you want to unmute yourself to get more into the specifics of what you're talking about, I think we'll be able to answer that question. Ah, like for hiding on mobile. No, it should not slow down the load time of a page if you hide a block on a mobile device. So normally how those features wind up working is that it will load the content of that page, but then it looks at the browser to say, is this a mobile device? Or it looks at the width of the page and determines, is this a tablet or is this a phone? It shouldn't slow down the page load of the block at, like, shouldn't slow down the page load of the page at all. All it is usually hiding it via like a CSS, like via some sort of CSS enhancement or using JavaScript, but it shouldn't slow down the load time of a page at all if you're using the hide on mobile feature, the hide on tablet feature that's available within a block. Uh, are themes less important now? Uh, hmm, that is a good question. Uh, yeah, I would say that one of the features that we did not touch on, but that's definitely useful within current versions of WordPress, is the idea of the full site editor. So the full site editor essentially will allow you to build out a website using all of the features of the block editor. So rather than just building out the page content, you can build out the header and footer of a website. And with this and with the block editor and all the features that are available, you can quickly change the look and feel of particular pages or the look and feel of an entire website just using the block editor. I would say themes are a little less important than they used to be. So in the current days, and definitely a couple of years ago, a lot of themes would, what we would call super themes. It essentially comes with everything out of the box. And when you switch one theme, and let's say you wanted to change that theme in the future, all of the features of your current theme are all gone. So WordPress is sort of moving to this way of themes not being being a little bit more flexible and compatible with one another, and being able to use the block editor to do a lot of the things that you used to have to rely on short codes for, and being able to like rely on things like settings of a particular theme in order to enhance it. So in that way, themes are a little less important, but themes do still control the initial look and feel of the website is probably one of the best ways to put it. So the initial look and feel of a website is going to be controlled by the theme, but a lot of the enhancements and styles that you can add to a particular page or sections of a website, you can now control those with the block editor instead. So the block editor at least makes the themes a little less important in that way. So I hope I answered your question. Does anyone else have any other questions? Thanks, Lily. I'm glad that it was useful to everyone. Oh yeah, to answer the question. So, Patrick, yes, every pattern that we showed within this presentation, all of those are completely free. So if you go to wordpress.org/patterns and you go to the pattern directory, every single one of those patterns is completely free. You don't need to pay for anything. So WordPress.org doesn't even have the ability to pay for anything. You just go there, find a pattern, copy it, paste it, and now the pattern is on your website and it's completely free. If there are no other questions, we will wrap this up. Christine, do you have any more closing words?
I don't, but thank you all for joining and listening to us for an hour.
Yeah, thank you all. And if you do have any questions about your particular website, if you're a support and maintenance client, please feel free to reach out to the support team by emailing support at or by talking with the project manager if you're a current site build client. And with that, thank you all for joining us. And look, like if you're not already on our email list, we will definitely be emailing and talking about the other future presentations that we have in the future. I think this is maybe our third or fourth one. So we do have other ones planned in the future, but thank you all for joining us and have a great rest of your day.